Thunder. It's your boy Icon with a little Marvel movie review, and we're going over Thor, the god of Thor of Thunder, Lord and Thunder, Love and Thunder. So I saw this the other day, and coming out of it, before I even start, before I even start with the review, I'm pretty sure I've explained this before, but I need to say this, that one of the things about the Thor franchise, or the character specifically, that has disappointed me, like over the course of time, because in the movie they did a lot of references to previous Thor films. Like they took us back like throughout like all the previous Thor films, and when they showed us the clips and everything from the Thor films, from the previous Thor films, I actually forgot how much I used to like him. Like they showed scenes from the first Thor movie, from the second, the third, because the thing is, in the first Thor movie, it's not a secret, like, and I've said this plenty of times, it's not a secret that the one thing about Marvel that I don't like, the one thing that I'm not a fan of, is the constant need for unnecessary comedy. Like the constant need where everybody has to tell jokes and everybody has to ruin serious moments for the sake of bad comedy. And I feel like, the Marvel product basically caters to children because they try to be colorful and silly and goofy or whatever the case may be. But with that being said, when the original Thor movie came out, I liked it because this dude was serious. Like, he was an arrogant son of a bitch. He was kicking ass. He was going around like breaking heads and everything. He got into the situation where his dad had to humble him and send him to Earth without his power. And then, and even then, like the movie had comedy in it, but it wasn't forced comedy, and it was serious comedy. Like when he was on Earth for the first time and he was walking around and he thought that he still had his power, and he was telling everybody another, and then he was like, you will not bend to the, he's like, you will bend to the mighty Thor. And then they tased him and then he passed out. It's like, that was funny because it was a serious moment. It was a serious situation that happened to the character. It wasn't the character trying to be a goof. Then he got his power back and he destroyed that iron monster, whatever. In the second Thor film, the same thing. Like he was serious. He took everything seriously. Him and Jane together, like they saved the world. They got the power stone or whatever the case may be. And then unfortunately we got Ragnarok. And it was right around that time, even with Age of Ultron, like in Age of Ultron, he was serious. Like when he was with the other Avengers, he was like, I must leave because I can't find answers here. And then he went to the pool, and then he saw like Dr. Zeldwick and whatever. And then, then when he came back, like he helped birth Vision. And, like towards the end of the film, when Captain America and Tony were having that joking conversation about the hammer being worthy in an elevator, Thor was the one who was serious in that moment. And then he was like, I must seek answers. And then, he opened the Bifrost, and then he went over to seek answers about the Infinity Stones. And then for some reason, the moment he left, somebody in the writer's room decided, like, hey, let's make him a complete joke. And then we got that god-awful Ragnarok. I wasn't a fan of Ragnarok. Too much forced comedy, too much unnecessary comedy, and too much comedy where it didn't need to be. I thought I was getting a movie of Thor and the Hulk being like two big powerhouses breaking their way through the universe, kicking ass and taking names, and instead I get a scene where the Hulk is walking around with his butt hanging out, crying because everybody thinks he's the stupid Avenger, and I'm like, that's not what I signed up for. So this film, I feel, was the best that they could do as far as like making it 50-50. Whereas like the film being serious, but also still catering to the, to the comedy. Just so it doesn't sound like I'm dumping on the film, let's just get the bad out of the way. The things I didn't, before I review this, the things I did not like about the film: I did not like the comedy when it happened. I did not like the Guardians of the Galaxy. Thank God, like only two of them spoke. Like I didn't like the Guardians of the Galaxy. And for the love of God, them cows got on my damn nerves. So with that being said, the movie starts where we have the villain of the film. And when the movie starts, this gentleman, he's walking through the desert and he has his daughter in his hands, and both of them are dying. They were in a dreaded wasteland. Their world came crashing down. And then during the course of them not having food or water to drink, then unfortunately this man, like his daughter, passed away in his arms and he buried her. And then as soon as his daughter died, he saw an oasis. He ran over to the oasis. He started drinking water out of the oasis. And then he met the god that the people on his planet prayed to. And then he pledged his allegiance, he pledged his services. He was like, we've been waiting for you, please show us the way. He's like, show me the way, show me the power. And then the god was basically a douchebag. He was just like, look, bro, he was just like, he's like, you get nothing. He's like, there's no reward for worshiping me. He's like, you get nothing. He's like, I created you because I was bored on some random Tuesday and you receive nothing from me after you die. And then, but this is where he messed up. He told him, he said, because then he was like, then why are you here? He said, we basically came here because we were fighting this person. It was a dead person on the floor because this person had that sword, and that sword is the God Killer sword. And I'm like, wait a minute, did they steal that from Wonder Woman? He was like, that sword was the God Killer sword, and he was using it to kill off God. So we had to stop him before, he ended up killing us. But he's dead now. Your species is dead, and now I don't care. And then then that's when the guy got mad, and he was just like, oh, he was like, you're not a god. He was like, you're an embarrassment, and I renounce you. And then the guy got mad, picked him up, and he was just like, pathetic mortal. He was like, I will kill you where you stand. And then the sword called out to the guy, because since he lost his faith in the gods, and since in his god specifically, since he lost his faith, the sword sensed that. It sensed his anger, it sensed his despair, it sensed his rage, and the God Killer's sword called out to him, and then the guy picked up the sword and used the sword to kill his god, and then now he wields the sword, and he now wields the power. So now he's on a killing spree where he's going around killing gods all across the planet. And then this now brings us to Thor and, unfortunately, the Asgardians of the galaxy. So the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're with Thor. They had a nice little montage with Thor showing how he got back into shape, and showing like how he got himself back. And him and the Guardians, they were on a ship together, traveling all over the cosmos, and they were saving people and everything. Thor kind of went back to his old like arrogant self just for a little bit when he was going around saving the town. And then after he saved the town, that's when they the town that they saved, as a gift of him, for him saving the town, they gave him these two gigantic cows, and it was just like screaming, like random screaming throughout the course of the whole film. And as soon as it happened for the first time, when the cows first appeared on the scene, and the first cow was like, ah! And then like the second cow was like, ah! And then when they used the cow, when they put the cows on the ship, I said to myself, for the love of God, this joke is going to keep going. I was like, we're going to hear these cows until the damn credits roll. And that's exactly what happened. So so now they're at a point where Thor gets a call from Lady Sif. Like, remember her? Remember Lady Sif, who appeared in the first two Thor films? She was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she was also in the Loki series, which was complete trash. She wasn't in Ragnarok. We never found out what happened to her in Ragnarok, but come to find out, I guess she was off doing missions for Odin, and she was on some snow planet, and she was fighting the person, who held the God Killer sword. So Lady Sif actually called Thor. She had his number. And when she called Thor, she was like, we're getting slaughtered out here. And then Thor, he broke up with the Guardians of the Galaxy thing. Like, I'm glad that ended quickly, because there will be no review for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I'm just putting that out there right now. So the Guardians left. And then after they left, c'est la vie, and then Thor, the big blue rock guy, and for some reason, them damn cows, they went to the planet where Lady Sif was. They found Lady Sif, she got her arm cut off, and that was gross. And, he picked her up, put her back in her arms, and then that's when he got the call that Asgard was being under attack. So back in Asgard now, we're with Valkyrie, who's the king of Asgard. And we find out what Valkyrie's been up to since, I guess, Avengers Endgame. Because she's the king of Asgard, she's taken on a more diplomatic role, where you see her at the United Nations having conversations with politicians and bureaucrats and taking photos and kissing babies. And she ended up turning Asgard basically into a playland. She turned it into a tourist attraction where people can come, they can meet the Asgards, they can see Asgardian magic, they can play, with everybody, they can see statues of Thor and everything, and she basically kind of like sold Asgard out for the money. So, but then there was the demon that now has the God Killer sword. He made his way, he ended up sending demons to Asgard, so I guess so he can find Thor or find gods that just happen to be there. Thor ends up getting the call from them saying that Asgard's under attack and we need you to come back here ASAP. And now this brings us to Jane Foster. So Jane is there. And then Jane's quirky little friend who was in the Wanda series Vision, Darcy, I was about to say, I don't know why her name escaped me. Darcy ends up showing up. She was only in one scene. Because the funny thing about Darcy, when she was in WandaVision, she disappeared in like the season finale. She ran somebody over with a car, and then we never saw Darcy again. So I guess after she hit that dude with the car, that's when she got the call that that Jane had cancer, that she went to the hospital to go talk to Jane. So unfortunately, Jane has stage 4 cancer, and she's a published author now. She's famous, telling books about the Rainbow Bridge and everything. But then she obviously she doesn't want to die, and she's trying to find a cure, but she can't find a cure. So then Darcy is just like, well, why don't you go ask Thor? And then she was just like, that's kind of awkward, because they actually told an entire montage story about how the two of them broke up. It turns out that both of them were so afraid of embracing love that they intentionally pushed each other away. Thor got wrapped up in doing Avengers stuff. Jane got wrapped up doing her stuff, and then it just didn't work anymore. Now they're arguing all the time, typical BS, and then they broke up. She wrote him a letter, and then she dipped and then left, and then never came back. So, but now because she's dying, now she comes crawling back. She ends up going to Asgard. She talks to Valkyrie, and then when she goes to Asgard, she sees Thor's broken hammer, because the pieces of Mjolnir they had in the glass case display for everybody to see. And then when Jane got closer, the hammer called out to Jane, and then it put itself back together for Jane because it deemed Jane worthy. The reason why the hammer deemed Jane worthy, during the montage where they showed their relationship and how the relationship ended, there was a moment where Thor, I guess the two of them were drunk, and then she had passed out drunk, and then Thor was sitting there. He had Mjolnir in his hand, and he said to Mjolnir, he was like, please, he's like, for all eternity, protect Jane Foster, and he was like, deem her worthy of your power, and he's like, and keep her safe whenever she needs it. Just like how his dad in the first Thor movie, when he sent Thor to Earth, he was like, whoever holds this hammer, should he be worthy, will possess the power of Thor. Thor did the same thing unintentionally for Jane, and he didn't remember doing that because he was drunk, but because he did that, the hammer was basically charged with the responsibility of protecting Jane. So when Jane got close to it, that's when the hammer put itself back together. So now that Asgard's under attack by the God Killer guy, Thor shows up to try to help. He's fighting the monsters, fighting the demons, and then Jane shows up dressed as the new Thor. That's how she became Thor. Once she got the hammer in her hand, she possessed the power of Thor, and now the two of them are fighting together against the bad guys. There was some very awkward joking about their relationship and seeing each other for the first time. They told a lot of jokes about how his old weapon Mjolnir and his ex-girlfriend are now together, which was making his axe jealous. There was a lot of bad jokes there with the whole jealousy thing. Valkyrie decided to come along, and then she was talking to the rock guy for some reason. They all decided, they showed signs of her being in charge of Asgard or whatever, and then they found out that while they were having this battle, the God Killer used that battle as a distraction to kidnap all the Asgardian children, and he kept them in the Shadow Realm. While he kept them in the Shadow Realm, we find out that the oldest kid amongst them was the son of Heimdall, and just like his father, he actually has the ability to see everything and see beyond. So he reached out to Thor, and he was like, I'm with all the children. He was like, we're here in the Shadow Realm. And then Thor was like, I'm coming to save you because I'm the mighty Thor. He's like, in the meantime, just like your daddy, he was like, protect the children for all they're worth. He's like, because we see it all. So they, so they came up with the idea. They're just like, listen, if we're going to go fight this guy with a God Killer sword, we need to get some reinforcements. I don't know why he didn't ask the Avengers to help him, but they figured they needed some reinforcements. So they ended up going to some god. They basically went to the place where Zeus hangs out. And I was just like, when they said Zeus, I was like, wait, like Zeus, like Wonder Woman daddy Zeus? Like Zeus. Because again, Zeus is Wonder Woman's dad. So, but it was like Zeus. So they go down to go talk to Zeus. Zeus is having an orgy. And when Zeus came out, he was all fat and shit. And I thought that was, I was like, yeah, okay. So he was all fat and shit. And then he was just telling everybody, he was like, this realm, Zeus will protect you from the God Killer. And then Thor went to go ask for his help. And then he was like, no, because he was just like, we're not going to go out there and get slaughtered. He was like, this guy killed low-level gods. We're protected here. He's like, as long as we're here, he can't find the end of time or the beginning of time. Because what this guy was searching for, he was searching for like this stone, this it was like a statue. He was searching for the statue. I forgot what they called it, but the statue, they said that if you present yourself before the statue, it'll grant you one wish. And everybody was saying how his one wish, because he hates the gods, that his one wish would be to wipe out all the gods. And because Zeus was an arrogant prick, he thought he was gonna be protected in his little bubble, and then him and Thor got into it. Thor actually, because like Zeus is, because it's the same way how like Thor has like the axe and the hammer, Zeus's power is a metal lightning bolt. And he attacked Thor, he attacked his, he attacked his people. They got into this whole big thing. Thor ends up killing Zeus, or so we thought. And then after Thor killed Zeus, he took his lightning bolt and they went after the children. Now, during that battle, they went to the Shadow Realm. And then during that battle, Valkyrie got badly injured. And then Jane was badly injured. Thor got his ass kicked, and then the three of them dipped and had to go back to the hospital. So we find out that Valkyrie now, she can no longer join the final battle because she's injured. His rock friend got destroyed, so he can't go because he was destroyed. And then after he got destroyed, then we find out that Jane can't go because Thor found out that, because the thing is, when they had Jane in the hospital, they were doing a diagnostic on her. They said that something's wrong with her body to the point where it's not fighting her cancer. And then Thor deduced that the hammer, like because she's using the power of Thor, it's taking away her normal human ability to be able to fight against certain diseases. I'm gonna be honest, that didn't make sense to me, and I didn't understand why using the hammer was preventing her from healing herself. But for storyline purposes, I guess we're gonna do this. So then he told her, he was like, "I love you, Jane Foster. Don't use the hammer." And then she was just like, "Oh, but I love being a Thor." Well, I don't know why I'm using an accent for her. She's like, "I love being a Thor," and she's like, "I love helping people." He was like, "No, but it's killing you, Jane." He's like, "I forbid it." And then he was like, "Sit your ass down, and I will go slay the monster once and for all to protect you all." So of course that doesn't happen. Jane takes the hammer and she goes anyway to go help him fight. When Thor gets there, he actually, just like they did in Shazam, Thor used the power of Stormbreaker to filter his power through the children. And well, actually, it was Zeus's lightning bolt, because he still has Zeus's lightning bolt. The God Killer guy, during their first battle, he actually took Stormbreaker from Thor, because the only way the guy was able to get to that statue to grant his wish, he needed Stormbreaker to open the Bifrost, because Stormbreaker could open the Bifrost. So he got his hands on Stormbreaker. Thor has Zeus's lightning bolt, and Thor used Zeus's lightning bolt to instill the power of Thor into the children. And then that was very cute. The scene where the children use their weapons and everything to fight against the monsters and everything, I thought that was really cute and that was really cool. But but then Thor learned this lesson though, because the last time he opened his mouth, that's how Jane got her hands on the hammer. So this time he was just like, "Oh, any child who wishes to get out of the Shadow Realm, should they be worthy, for a limited time, can possess the power of Thor." I was like, yeah, because you don't want to repeat performance what happened before. So that was actually funny. There were a few moments in the movie that actually made me laugh because they were like appropriate, but like all that excess unnecessary joking, like that shit bothered me. So then like the kids have the power of Thor, and this was another cool moment because after they kind of like defeated the God Killer guy and they got Stormbreaker, out of his possession, because Thor had the lightning bolt, he didn't really need Stormbreaker 100%. So he took Stormbreaker, he put Stormbreaker into the floor, and then when the kids were safe, he told the kids, "Everyone go over to Stormbreaker, everyone grab a hold of Stormbreaker." And then in a very cool way, Heimdall's son used Stormbreaker to open the Bifrost. And I was like, that was cute. Because that's what his daddy did. Like, to see his son actually take the sword, put both hands on it and open the Bifrost to take all the kids back to Asgard. I was like, see, chip off the old block. That was dope. So the kids are gone. The kids are safe. Jane shows up now. It's Jane and Thor together. They end up fighting the guy. During the battle, Jane goes down because the cancer is like legitimately killing her. And because of that, Thor was distracted. And because Thor was distracted, the guy actually made his way to the statue. And they were now in a place where he's allowed to get his wish. Him and Thor actually had conversation, and then that's when Thor was just like, "Oh, your child died. You can bring her back with one wish." He was like, "Or you can slaughter millions of gods to get your vengeance." And then he was just like, "Oh, you're not gonna fight me, God of Thunder." And then he was like, and then this is a very important line. Thor specifically said to him, he said, "No, you've already won." And I was like, yeah, he kind of did win. I was like, this is one of those rare moments where just like in the Batman, where the Riddler actually won. I was like, this is one of those rare situations where the bad guy actually won. Like, the guy got what he wanted. He all the moves that he made were set into motion for him to get the opportunity to have his wish. The guy won, like he got what he wanted. And at that point, there was no reason to fight him. So Thor basically tried to tug on his heartstrings. And he told him, he said, listen, he was like, you won, you get the wish, but do you really want to blow your one wish, destroying all the gods all across the universe? Or do you want to use your one wish to bring back the child that you lost? Thor goes over to Jane. the two of them, like embrace each other. And then the guy says to Thor, well, then the guy, he ended up making his wish. And then when he saw Jane and Thor like embracing each other, he thought about his daughter. Then he got emotional. And then after that, he made his wish, and his wish was to actually bring his daughter back. So he brings his daughter back. That's when he realizes that the toll that his body was taken by using that sword, he said that he was dying. And then he was like, now that I've brought my daughter back, he was like, I'm gonna die. He was like, what will become of my child? And then Jane told him, she was like, don't worry, Thor's gonna take care of your kid. And he was like, what? And because I thought they were gonna save Jane. Like, because Thor was in the room with him, I thought Thor got a wish as well. I thought he was gonna get a wish, and I thought Thor was gonna get a wish. But apparently the guy just got a wish, and Thor was just there to be a spectator. And then the guy died with his daughter, like the guy died in his daughter's arms, but he was happy because he was able to bring his daughter back. And then after Jane and Thor kissed each other, then Jane died and she passed on, and I was just like, that shocked me, because I didn't think they were going to kill Jane. I did not think, like, if I would have guessed any character in this film, I did not think Jane Foster was going to be the one to die. The fact that when I found out Jane like legitimately died when she was like gone, I was like, oh, so I guess Natalie Portman doesn't want to do any more Thor movies, and this was her exit out of the franchise. They convinced her to come back for one more film, and then she was just like, I'll come back as long as you kill me. And I was just like, really? Like, I mean, kudos to them for making that decision, because like they killed her and they stuck to it, so. I said, but it was very surprising. And then when it was over, that was very sad. And then they had a statue of Jane in New Asgard. And then when they put the new statue up, Valkyrie, she's still doing her thing, protecting the people of Asgard. And then now Thor, they said he went from what did he say? He went from demigod to dad god. So now like he's protect. Because see, the thing about Thor now being a dad to this little girl, like we all see what's happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they're trying to set up this Young Avengers initiative, where they got the black kid that kept calling Falcon Black Falcon. You know what I'm saying? Like they got the chick from the Hawkeye series. Pay attention to all the Marvel properties that are coming out, both film and television. They're doing a lot of setups where they're putting children in play to take over for these people. Introducing America Chavez in the Doctor Strange movie. So they're quietly putting together the Young Avengers, and I'm just like, now we've gone full-blown children here, like, because again, the Marvel movies are already very kid-friendly, but I'm like, now we're just like going all the way with it. And no matter how good the Young Avengers are going to be, you ain't gonna top no Young Justice and no Titans. So but that's basically where the direction is. So now Thor has a child that he can put together. There's probably going to be a movie one day where all the adults get kidnapped, and like all the kids are going to have to come save the adults. So yeah, so that was it. And then the movie ended. The movie ended, and then the reason why the movie was called Love and Thunder, it wasn't about Jane and Thor. It's called Love and Thunder because it's Thor and his daughter, and they're out there saving the galaxy from scum all across the land. She uses Stormbreaker because unfortunately the child is worthy, and Thor still has his hammer, which now has cartoonish drawings all over it. And then that's how the film ended. And thank you for tuning in. And in the post-credit scene, in one post-credit scene, we find out that Zeus is not dead. He actually had a very powerful speech. Like, Zeus's whole thing was, he was just like, oh, people used to worship the gods, they used to pray to us, and now they don't care anymore. Now they look to their superheroes, to protect them. When did the gods become a joke? And I was like, when y'all decided to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe is when y'all became a joke. But but then it's like, but bro, like, you were being a dick. Like, that's why people don't respect you, because you're an ass, like at least the superheroes protect people. But he was just like, Thor will pay for what he's done to the mighty Zeus. Isn't that right, my son, Hercules? And then Hercules stood up. So now in the next Thor film, because we're going to get 5 of these, in the next Thor film, it's going to be Thor versus Hercules, Odin's son versus Zeus's son. In the final post-credit scene, it's a scene where we find out what happened to Jane, where Jane ends up dying, because they said something earlier when Lady Sif was, when she was on that planet and she got beat up basically by the God Killer guy. When Thor found her, she was missing an arm and she was bleeding. She was bleeding all over the place. And then he's like, "Oh, Lady Sif," he was like, "Let me take you back to Asgard for treatment." And then she was like, "No, Thor." She was like, "I will." And then here she go with this lie. She was like, "I will die a warrior's death." I'm like, she says that shit like. Every time, you cannot see a Lady Sith scene without her uttering the phrase, "I will die a warrior's death." And then she was like, "Oh, I will die a warrior's death in battle," and then she's like, "My sacrifice in battle will send me straight to Valhalla." Valhalla where I'll be worshipped as a champion. And then he was like, unfortunately, man, she was like, he said you didn't die in battle because you survived. And when he said that, that was the first time in the movie I legitimately laughed. Because I was like, he's right. She actually did not die in battle because she's still alive. So you don't get to go to Valhalla. So, and then he brought her back to Asgard. I thought they were going to give her like a metal arm or something. If you can give Misty Knight on Iron Fist and Luke Cage, if Rand Industries can make a metal arm for Misty Knight, you would think someone in Asgard can give Lady Sif her arm back. More on that to come hopefully in the future, because Lady Sif now, she's back on Asgard full time and she's training Heimdall's son to become a warrior. And you know, so I guess like Heimdall's son, he'll see, and that's another thing, talking about the kids and everything, the Young Avenger kids. Now we got Heimdall's son on the team too, so like that montage of him being trained specifically because all the other kids were being trained by Valkyrie. Heimdall's son was specifically being trained by Lady Sif. So don't think that's not going to have anything to do with Young Avengers going forward either. But that was cool to see. So anyway, so in the final credit scene, after Jane died, we see her spirit arrived in Valhalla. And when she arrived in Valhalla, she was actually met by Heimdall, Idris Elba's character. And I was like, well, that's nice. They found a way to get Idris Elba's character still on the show. And then when she got there, she was like, did I die? He was like, no, he was like, Jane Foster, congratulations, you're dead. and then she was just like, where am I? She was like, a place where warriors die in battle and will be celebrated for all of eternity. Welcome, Jane Foster, to Valhalla. And then so that's where Jane is. So Natalie Portman done, y'all. She in Valhalla. She done died. She died a warrior's death in battle. So she good. And yeah, I guess we're not going to see her or Heimdall ever again. That was their official exit from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Thor will continue on with this random child until the Young Avengers initiative begins. So yeah, my thoughts on the film. The movie was bad when it was unnecessarily comical. And not even just the comedy, the constant montages of going back to revisit like Thor and Jane's like history together. I didn't need all that backstory. It's because the thing is, the storyline in this movie was very basic. The movie was basically guy gets disappointed by gods, guy kills gods, God kills guy who's trying to kill gods, the end. Like it was a very basic and straightforward storyline. So I feel like all these montages of going back and revisiting the past over and over again was just a way to fill up the movie to get it to the 2-hour mark, because I didn't need all that backstory. And I thought like a lot of that, it's almost like they did the backstory for people who just like, oh, if you've never seen Thor before ever in life, let's give you the entire backstory. And I'm just like, okay, everybody's seen at least one Thor movie. Like we didn't need all that backstory. And then the jokes, like I said, them cows got on my damn nerves, y'all. Like all that constant, I was like, for the love of God, make it stop. Because it wasn't like, it wasn't funny. Like the cow thing was like funny. It was like half funny like the first time, and then it just wouldn't stop. The Guardians of the Galaxy can kiss my ass. And you know what I'm saying? That's like, but it was like typical Thor bullshit. Like, but when the movie was serious, when they took it seriously, when they were on the battlefield, when they were telling their stories and giving their speeches about protecting humanity. Although I will say this, I thought I did appreciate them bringing back the play aspect of it. The play, because I remember, I remember in Ragnarok when they had the play where like their mom died and everybody was doing the do 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 do. So when they still did the play of how like Loki and like Oh Father and everybody, I thought the play was funny, but like I'm fine with comedy as long as it's like appropriate. But when it's like people shouldn't be joking during a serious battle. You know what I'm saying? Like if the world is at stake, stop. Like stop being funny. Like it's not funny. The world is at stake. Like somebody needs to take, like I say all the time, someone needs to take this shit seriously. And when the movie was serious, I enjoyed it. The movie was very enjoyable. I will recommend, yes, if you've been following the Thor franchise from the beginning and if you like the Thor character, go see Thor Love and Thunder because it is an enjoyable film. Just know that there will be a lot of unnecessary comedy, there'll be a lot of forced comedy, and there's a lot of backstory based on old films that you've already seen. But again, when the movie is serious, when they take it seriously, when they pay attention to detail, it is very enjoyable, and I did enjoy it. Like I said, it wasn't the greatest movie of the summer, but it was a very enjoyable film, and you should all check it out. So share your questions, comments, and or concerns down below. What do you think about Thor versus Hercules in this? Can we even call this a sequel at this point? What do you think about Thor versus Hercules? The fact that they've removed Jane Foster from the timeline, and she's now in Valhalla. What do you think about where the Thor franchise goes from here? My predictions that I said about the kids and Heimdall and all this stuff, where we go from there and how things continue. Check out my YouTube channel because we got the season finale review of Ms. Marvel on the channel as well. We're waiting for that Harley Quinn to come out for you DC fans because we will review Harley Quinn, and we are still waiting for the Doom Patrol on HBO Max. So thanks for tuning in, guys. So I've rambled on enough about this film. Check me out on Instagram and Twitter, on social media. Always share your thoughts, questions, and or concerns. Until next time, for the God of Thunder, I'm out of this bitch.